Hello and welcome to the December 2013 energy reading. I am Adrienne Elise. Well, congratulations on making it through November 2013 with a journey to our deepest inner psyche self. With Mercury going retrograde in Scorpio, the Sun in Scorpio, and that Mercury retrograding, crossing over the Saturn in Scorpio, back over, and then for a third time. Now, Mercury has just had its third crossing on the 27th over Saturn in Scorpio, and it's now moving into new territory. So back to where it was started before it was retrograde. So we're moving out of that cycle. As well as that Mercury retrograde in Scorpio and the Sun in Scorpio, we had an eclipse cycle, which is about bringing up what needs to be revealed in your life. And so this bringing up has had everything to do with the deepest inner, what I call muck, and the stuff we don't really want to look at. But with the Sun moving into Sagittarius on the 23rd and this new moon in Sagittarius at the beginning of the month is bringing this lighter fire energy, kind of bringing us up for air and coming out from under the depths of that inner journey. And so that's helping a lot. Sagittarius has this wider perspective, this bigger spiritual view, and that energy is really helpful right now. So you go, oh, okay, now I'm starting to realize and understand about what it is I've been going through. And so that's helping things move to a new place. Mercury continues to be a big player in December. It seems to be dancing through the major planetary aspects and kind of pulling at the threads of our reality and pulling at what we think is true and asking us. Mercury is kind of taking a whole new role. It feels like it's like it matured and became a whole new planet. And the 6th, it comes into a square with Neptune, and Neptune is the ruler of Pisces, and Pisces represents the Piscean age, what we've just come out of, and it can be associated with the ideas of religious dogma as far as the picture of the martyr, and it's really a picture of the duality consciousness on the planet. And as soon as we have duality, which we've been in here in 3D, God is outside of ourselves. And when God is outside of ourselves, then we inherently become less than or evil and need to be redeemed. And this brings a whole culture of control, hierarchy, oppression, struggle, sacrifice, and victim consciousness. So this Mercury coming into a square with Neptune is really kind of asking us to reevaluate whether that model is serving us anymore. And it's just kind of perfect as we're moving into this age of Aquarius. Now on the 10th, Mercury comes into a square with Chiron, and Chiron is the wounded healer. So this is another opportunity, more energy towards evaluating our victim consciousness. And this is really powerful because Chiron has been retrograde since June, and last month it went direct. And then with that coming out of that Mercury retrograde cycle and the eclipse cycle, pushing this Chiron energy to the foreground, and Mercury's kind of activating that. And this is our inner woundedness, the part of ourselves that needs to be healed, the wounded healer, before we can move into our purpose on the planet. And that's really activate. But it also represents the death of an old paradigm, of the old paradigm. And again, asking ourselves whether the victim consciousness, being a victim of our reality, is serving us anymore, or are we ready to move into our new role in the future paradigm of being co-creators of our reality. So very powerful aspects. And on the 10th, also Mercury comes into a very harmonious trine with Uranus. And Uranus and Pluto square is the big astrology of this 3-4 year period, the 2012 astrology, very similar to the 60s, bringing power structure, which is the Pluto energy, and that's in Capricorn. So the power structure, death of power in the structures of our life. And then the Uranus in Aries is the identity of the self, in this lightning change, this dramatic change coming to the self. And so it's a very powerful square. And Uranus actually goes direct this month on the 17th, on the same day as the full moon. And so we're starting to feel that Uranus moving out of retrograde, and it's going to become a lot bigger player in 2014 in this activated square, moving us into that new paradigm. What does it mean to be in the Aquarian age? But there's some really great messages and medicine in this Uranus and Aries, and Mercury coming to trigger that is bringing it to light. because Uranus, this lightning change, this rebellious kind of energy of revolution in the sign of the self, the child, the identity. And so our identity is being shaken at the core, especially with that square with the Pluto structures. But there's something beautiful about this Uranus and Aries. And we talked about the Pluto-Uranus square, that there's 7 exact of those over this 3-4 year period. And we've just had the 4th one last month, and they last around a month or two, just so because there's big slow moving planets. So we're really still in this 4th exact, and I liken it to the 7 major chakras. And so we're looking at the heart chakra, and so I'm seeing us on the planet getting this heart chakra activation, and it's really what we need to do to move into the consciousness of our heart. We need to have this heart chakra activation. But the problem is, when we go to open our heart, what we find is the pain of the earth, of humanity, and it's overwhelming. And so it's like, no wonder, we'll just keep that closed, And so that Mercury in Scorpio is really kind of getting in there and retrograde and pulling that inner muck out, as keeping us from getting in our heart, which is really beautiful. But this Uranus in Aries has a great message here for that. Aries, I don't know, Aries, that personality there of the child, it's kind of like they are very independent and very detached, and they're kind of like, fine, whatever. And that's kind of a really helpful place to be on some level in this heart opening, with this revolutionary change, the Uranus being in the planet of the self, this self actualization. Because what we need to do is to be able to break from the tribal consciousness, this pain, this collective energy of pain on the planet, the pain of the earth, what we feel when we open our heart. We have to disconnect from that energy in order to raise our vibration to a higher level. And then we can reconnect on a different level in the collective. Because the Aquarian energy, the age of Aquarius, with the Aquarian energy, Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius. And what that energy is about the strong individual and the collective consciousness together. And using intellect and technology to solve our problems and bring forward a new collective consciousness is really, in a nutshell, the Aquarian age. But at first, before we can come into that collective consciousness, we need that strength of ourself. We need to say, no longer my story. I'm not carrying that pain. I'm not going to those places anymore. I'm going to raise my vibration. And so you have to just cut off from the tribal consciousness, from the pain of the world, from the pain you carry for the people around you, your parents, past generations, the collective consciousness in general. And so just having that strength of that identity, that fighting for the truth of who you are, that Uranus and Aries, and using that to the best of your advantage to be able to strengthen yourself, to release what you carry for everyone else, and that collective pain, in order to bring yourself to a higher vibration, disconnect from everything that's no longer serving you, and bring yourself to a higher vibration, and then reconnect into the whole. And that we can bring the whole energy of the planet up to a higher level. So that's kind of really great energy. Now, Jupiter and Saturn are doing a dance this month. They're in a trine, and they kind of stay close together because Jupiter is retrograde. Jupiter went retrograde last month, and it will be retrograde until March 6th. And so this is really, Jupiter is the ruler of Sagittarius, and so it has this wider, expansive view of the reason behind things, of looking at things in a broader sense, more expansive. And Saturn is our work and duty. And so these trining together is kind of a neat energy. With Jupiter is in Cancer, which is a really great placement because it's bringing this wider perspective to our idea of home. And at this point on the planet, it's letting us see, our home, the earth, our wider home. And then maybe our Earth isn't just like a living planet, which it is, the most beautiful Gaia, but maybe it's also a mothership. And the Jupiter in Cancer is asking us to come home in our consciousness to the fact that we are part of a way, way, way bigger, expansive universe. And so that's a lot of the energy that's happening right now. And this coming into trine with that Saturn in Scorpio. Saturn Scorpio is making the work, that our work right now and our duty to ourselves is to clear out that inner muck. And so it's really a beautiful harmonizing energy of seeing like, okay, we're releasing this 3D reality, this duality, this pain and struggle, and we're opening up to the idea of being home, the Earth taking its rightful place back in the divine plan, coming back into the oneness, into our star home of the feeling like we are a part of this bigger universe, omniverse. And so that's some really helpful energy as well. Now on the 17th is the full moon in Gemini, and so that's when the sun is opposite, the moon is in Gemini, that's opposite where the sun is in Sagittarius. And so that's really activating duality, this kind of energy of the duality parts of ourselves, them balancing the male and the female, which is interestingly the necessary step to be able to get into that heart consciousness, to get into the oneness consciousness, to balance that male and female. And so the Gemini energy across from this expansive place of Sagittarius and seeing the big picture is helping, is kind of a great duality for this time of year. Now, it's the same day that Uranus goes direct. And Uranus has been retrograde since July. And we have had a fall of really being an autumn of just going to these depths of really clearing out some old crap and a fine-tooth comb on that deeper subconscious belief systems and bringing that all to the surface. And a lot of it is this feeling of like, okay, we've come to the end. We've already did the end part. We got the end of the paradigm. We got the end of 2012. How do we get into the next part in that feeling of being in between worlds, which is a corresponding meditation, guided meditation you can find on YouTube with a link below. And so in July, we had this beautiful energy. This was before when Uranus was just before it went to retrograde. There's this beautiful kind of crack in the shadow matrix into our lower dimensional reality. We kind of had this little like opening, and there was an opportunity to see this vision of your new world, what you're going to be doing, what you really love, what you want to be doing in it. And so if you can think back to July, and we had this beautiful grand water trine really supporting that process, and we had this little vision, and then we kind of went back into the deep work of the fall. But now that Uranus is going direct, and we're moving out of this year of the snake and into 2014, we are now can bring into practical 3D reality some of those dreams and visions, and it's kind of an interesting thing. It's a very different feeling. In the past, it's kind of like, oh, let yourself dream and vision and imagine, and that's how the last couple of years have been. And now that our old world is dead and we don't have a new one yet, it's kind of like, oh, I don't know, maybe someday, and wouldn't it be great if? It's just like time to stop that dreaming and fantasizing and be it right now. Make it real. Bring it into the 3D reality. Now we're having a bunch of support for that at the end of the month as we move into Capricorn energy. So on the 21st is the solstice. And so it's revisiting this death. We're really looking at the death of the old paradigm and where do we go from here? And so the sun moves into Capricorn on that day. And Mercury then moves into Capricorn on the 25th. And so that Capricorn energy, that's the mountain goat. It's like, okay, we see the vision of the mountain. Now, how do we bring it into 3D? How do we make it real? And so that's really a really great energy there. And so the other thing that happens on the solstice is that Venus goes retrograde. And Venus is also in Capricorn. And so, but Venus is our love and our harmony. And so we are going to be, we've been talking about whether or not the structures of our life, the Capricorn and then the Pluto the power structures, the dissolution, the breaking down, and then the Uranus and Aries and that square. It's asking us to reevaluate the structures in our life and whether or not they support the truth of who we are and our soul purpose. And so along the lines with that, like, stop the dreaming because there's no possibility in that, and start being in the possible, in the now, and bringing it home to earth. In that, there's this energy also of Venus is going to be really kind of going to another place. We had the Mercury retrograde. We had us thinking about it. We've had this Pluto-Uranus square. But with Venus coming in the Capricorn energy and triggering this whole thing and going retrograde, it's really asking us if our structures in our life support what we love. Are we doing in our daily life what we love? And that's a really big clue to our new paradigm. And there's hosts of angels, extraterrestrial help available that want to help us build this new world, but they don't know what it looks like until we tell them what it looks like. So this time that we're in, this next year cycle, is so crucial and so important for us to bring this into 3D, to know it into reality. Stop dreaming and fantasizing, but know our new truth. And so Venus is really asking us if we're spending the time doing what we love, because guess what? That's our work. Saturn in Scorpio is taking us to the deeper inner depths of ourselves and the cleansing out of the early childhood, of the subconscious belief systems. And guess what? When you get that all cleaned out, you realize that your work, you find your work, you find your gifts, you find the reason that you are here on the planet. And so Venus is really asking us what we love, and bringing that into the structures of our life and allowing our structures to change. And so this energy could be really affecting and bringing to light issues in the workplace, the structures of our life, in relationships, home life, and then also on the planet. So it's time for us to start seeing what we're here to do, and that's part of that heavy energy we talked about earlier. And there's this layer, the shadow matrix, the denser energies are getting thinner and thinner, but more compressed, and it feels really heavy, and it feels like, oh, we're never going to get out of this heaviness, and people are really weighed down, and you can just really feel it after that Scorpio energy and the holidays and the struggle of life and us being victims. And like astrology is saying right now, that stuff is all out of here, and we gotta stop fighting the old paradigm and move into the new and figure out what that looks like. And so releasing our deepest inner fears, our subconscious programming, changing our DNA to be able to have a new perspective, have a new world, allow ourselves to live the dream and stop dreaming the dream, because it's absolutely time. So on the 1st of the month, there's a new moon on January 1st. There's a new moon, and I think that's a really great energy to come into 2014, especially at this kind of death of the old paradigm, revisiting that on the solstice. And then we're kind of getting ready to move into the year of the horse, and that happens at the end of January in Chinese astrology. But the horse is a very different energy from the snake. The snake has been calling us to do this major transformation, feeling the tightening of the skin and then releasing that and letting it go. Very powerful energy, but the horse is something entirely different. The horse is at the gate, ready to go. Let me in the race, let me win the race. And so we're going to start seeing, especially with this Capricorn energy, pulling us into this new era and this new year. We're going to really be seeing some practical manifestations of the dreams that people have been dreaming, bringing those dreams to earth. And so it'll be a very exciting time for that, to feel like remembering the antidote to these hard times is remembering we're part of this bigger process, that we have a purpose, each and every one of us, to be here on the planet right now. And our soul, the truth of who we are, that Uranus and Aries, what we're all coming to try to find out, that truth of ourselves as cosmic and our cosmic consciousness, The truth of who we are is exactly the same as our soul purpose. And that is not our work and our duty as much as our love. And so these are all of the changes, letting go of this old paradigm, the year of the snake, the old religious belief systems, and moving into the new, because we have been tricked into thinking that, or we have been convinced that our world is a world of limitation, and that there's not enough. And yet science has now proven through quantum physics that the universe is ever expanding, and the material that we create from, the dark matter, it's a never-ending source of that. And so we know in the truth of our heart that there's always more, and that is really the heaven on earth. The new paradigm that we're creating here on earth is the truth of us as abundant. That now we can come out of the duality consciousness into the oneness, into the heart, where we see that we're all one, and there's plenty enough for all of us, because we are creators, co-creators of our own reality, and no longer victims with God outside of ourselves. So blessings on your journey, and until next time, namaste.